Hey everyone, it's Jenna from the Hello, I'm Underpaid Podcast. Um, welcome to season two. Today we are speaking with Laura Vestman, author of two books, Spiritual Nomad and Penny Panic. And welcome. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Cool. So we met because we were both on Tea with Gary V back
hmm
in April when the pandemic first started. And I was just kind of curious how things have been going since, and what was I'm kind of curious. I know a lot of people have asked me, what was your biggest takeaway from being on Tea Talk with Gary?
Um, well, I mean, I didn't expect him to. I really went there for kind of like a different reason of just really strictly talking about my books, but I didn't expect him to kind of like call me out about not doing video. That was totally unexpected. But it was kind of something I've always resisted and resisted fucking hard. Like I was not about it. I was like, that is not me. And I held on to what he has said that if it's not for you, it's don't do it. So, but in his context of how he explained it is like, well, you don't know if it's for you if you've never tried it. But I, in my brain, was like, no, I'm not going to do it. So that was like my huge takeaway. And it was great that I tried it. And it sucked at first. And it still sucks sometimes. Like there's times where I don't want to do it, or I'm just not feeling confident that day, or I feel like I have nothing to say. And I struggle sometimes still with like talking to myself. Like it's easier when I'm seeing someone in front of me. Um, it's hard when there's nobody there, but it takes practice, and I can tell you from April, it's gotten a lot easier.
That's amazing. Yeah, I went through a similar situation when I started my YouTube channel because it is kind of weird, like just sitting and talking to a camera
Yeah,
and like nobody's there
I
and like
know.
like someone will watch this later, but like um so it is like a little it's like a little awkward at first, and I definitely felt awkward when I first started doing it. um so since you've been doing videos since, do you still feel like it's not for you, or
Um, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like a huge like YouTube personality. I would not say I'm a video person. I would say I'm still very much a writer. I can say I do video content, I guess is what I would say. I wouldn't say like, you know what I mean? Like it's my strong suit is my writing, and it always will be. And I think when I am passionate or something sparks something and am able to like speak on it really well, then it does show well via like video. But sometimes it's very awkward.
yeah, I feel sort of similar about it because it's definitely not my strong point either, but I definitely feel like, there are things I want to talk about sometimes, so I kind of deal with that discomfort, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, you kind of have to push through it sometimes. And I think sometimes there's like things that, I think back to when I thought of doing videos sometimes, like years ago, and I talked myself out of it. But there's sometimes for me with my writing, sometimes it doesn't, there's more to say, and like Instagram like limits how much you can write. So sometimes you have to speak. And that's where it's great for me that I can speak longer or, say what I really need to say and get it out. Um, but yeah.
That's awesome. Um, Being an entrepreneur, and I know, you got your hustle selling the books. How do how do you manage your mental health while being an entrepreneur? Like, do you feel like anxiety creeps in? Because I know it does for me, being someone who deals with anxiety.
It does. And I think when I used to work in mental health and where my anxiety was absolutely rampant and I was not doing the self care that I should have, or at the time, self care wasn't really working. And, I learned from that experience that the moment it starts getting overwhelming, or you're not creative, or it's like it's just not hitting, then you stop 100%. Like, I don't judge myself if I'm like honestly, I'm not going to get political, but like the last few days, like just feeling all the energy of that shit from Wednesday, I'm like, Jesus Christ, like I need a break, because it's not only just like talking about it and whatever, it's in your feed all day, every day. Like your friends or your who in Facebook, it's fucking everywhere. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tap out for a minute, because I just can't. But, yeah, and it's not, being an entrepreneur is hard, and, but I enjoy it at the same time. But it's not to say that I don't have personal shit going on. And I think you have to, as an entrepreneur, accept that and admit that to yourself, and just be like, listen, I'm tapping out, and that doesn't mean I'm done. It just means I'm taking a minute to just like woosah for a second, and then you just come back. That's it. And you take however much time you need, and just do the self-care that you need to do. Like for me, if it's like not working out really bothers me, like I get more irritated, my anxiety is higher, things don't hit me as hard if I'm not working out. So when I am, it's like, all right, things are just moves more smoothly, So you just have to have those things, like I've said before, like just in your toolbox. You have to be able to know what works for you and utilize them when and your body's always telling you that, it's we who makes it very complicated when we don't listen to it.
For sure. I've done that so many times. And I think that I've totally resonate with a lot of what you're saying, because I had the same thing. I remember we had actually talked a couple months back about doing this podcast. I was like, look, I need to take a break from the podcast. And I really had to take a few months away from Underpaid Clothing, because I was going through a similar situation where I was just getting completely burnt out. And I wasn't listening to myself, and I would just push myself harder and harder. And I feel like with entrepreneurship, there could be kind of a toxic narrative sometimes, with like feeling like we have to be grinding 24/7 and grind ourselves to the point of burnout.
Yeah.
And then we get burnt out, and we have to end up taking a few months off, where this year I'm trying a new approach, scheduling in days for self-care and scheduling days to take a day off take a day off maybe once a week or whatever. It's so necessary, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
No, because I try to because like in the beginning, I'm sure like once right after Gary Vee, it's like you get all these DMs, or you just you have like all these things coming at you at a million miles an hour, and it was very overwhelming at first, but it's calmed down quite a bit. But still, like even still for me, like I need to like have I kind of did it where it's like my weekends are for me. Sometimes I'll be inspired and I'll post, and like sometimes I'm like, don't work, like stop, because I'm just like it's just if I'm just chilling or something, like will just spark an idea, and I'm because a lot of my posts are not like pre-thought out, they're very much on the fly. So I could just be like hanging out with my family, I'm like, oh no, gotta do something. But I have to like check myself sometimes, because you do need that time to just chill out and like binge a show, or like do what you need to do, or like you need that, because once you're at that burnout stage, it's not fun anymore, and it becomes a job. It's just like you're like, fuck, I don't want to do this, and it sucks. And it should be hard, and it is work, but you gotta always take care of yourself, because you're not going to put out your best self or your best content if you're not 100%.
Definitely. And from what I found with myself, creativity wise as well. Like I find that when I give myself a break and I give myself that time to actually think and not just go at 100 nonstop, I find it allows me to get that time where creative ideas pop in my head. When I'm going nonstop and nonstop, I feel like creative ideas don't pop into my head as often. So
yeah, and I think it's interesting because like I know you're more of like an artist, and artists and writers are very similar. You know, I mean, you're doing your own art a different way than I am, but I think the way we think is very similar. Like you have to get to that weird meditative state as an artist, whether you're a writer, singer, whomever, or writer. And it's like it's a weird zone. It's almost hard to explain when you're in that zone, but like that's when you're most creative and that's when your best ideas come through.
yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. I had that over the summer, and when I finally took a step back and finally gave myself some space, I'm like, wow, a new shirt idea just came into my head, or like, you know, a new like idea for how to market the business has popped in my head. And it's like, well, if I didn't allow myself, if I didn't give myself that time to relax and think and step back a little bit, like I don't think that those ideas would have came to me.
Yeah.
How has traveling affected your life? Like how has it changed your life? Has it given you like a different perspective on things, different cultures? Like how has that and why, and do you recommend it to people? Because like
100%.
traveling is definitely something I've been wanting to do more of.
100%. Yeah. I almost could say I recommend that more than college. More than college. Not even gonna lie.
It taught you more than college traveling.
I would think so, yeah. I mean, it taught me more about life. Granted, my first time out there was when I was 17, because I went and did like an educational thing when I was in high school. And then I went again after I graduated high school when I was like 18. So, you know what? Especially someone with anxiety, it's like traveling. That was the only thing for some weird reason that I didn't have anxiety when I was doing it. Like it was very bizarre. And I always thought about it when I was a kid. And I was like, what? And then that's kind of where I got addicted to it for a few years, because I was like, why am I so, granted it's like kind of vacation, so I get it, but like why do I feel so different than when I'm out there versus home? And why can't I be that Laura at home? You know, like how do I bring that back home? So it just taught me like an incredible amount of confidence in myself to just be a young woman, especially like traveling by yourself and figuring it out and just not knowing the language, not knowing a single person, just even basic shit, like just figuring out like how do you get on a train, like, or where do you pay for the ticket, or like, you know, like back when I traveled in 2008, the internet wasn't as crazy as it is now. Like we didn't have smartphones, so it was guidebooks. So it was like, how the fuck do I say this word? Because it has like the language in the back of it, and it's like, how do I say this? You know, and it's taught me like absolute resilience and being resourceful. And I think when you can figure stuff out like that for yourself, you can't not be confident from that. And then when you take that home into your regular life, you're like, you know what? I figured out how to take a train from Italy to Switzerland by my damn self. I think I can handle like this job interview or something. You know what I mean? Like whatever you are anxious about at home, it's like I use those as examples all the time where I'm like, this is not as bad. Like I've done X, Y, Z. And if I can do X, Y, Z, then I can do this. And it gives me a confidence boost to keep going.
That's amazing. Yeah, traveling is definitely something I've been wanting to do more of. And it does, I mean, not only that, but just like learning about different areas, learning about different cultures just sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And I think, oh, sorry.
No, and you learn so much about like, especially with cultures, I love talking to other people from different parts of the world, like, because, you know, we kind of have this unfortunate stereotype of travelers being American out there. Um, we're usually thought of as loud and obnoxious and, you know, ignorant, and it's unfortunate. And, you know, I've bumped into other American travelers where I'm like, you guys are, I'm like, I see why they say it. I see why they say it. So, but a lot of people sometimes like are shocked that I was American when I was out there, because they were like, I've never met an American who was so intrigued. I'm like, because I'm not a moron. I'm like, I'm very curious, because I'm like, I don't like being told one side of the story, because I know there's their side and then there's an in-between of the truth, you know. And I just love learning and about other cultures, because at the end of the day, they might not speak the same language as me, but we're so the same. And I've noticed that any place I've traveled, we all struggle with the same stuff. We just have different cultures and different languages. That's the only barrier.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like you don't really know that unless you travel, like, because sometimes, you know, like you can't trust what you read or see on, you know, in the media or whatever. So it's kind of interesting that, you know, you won't really get that perspective unless you actually, you know, travel places and see what it's like in different parts of the world.
Yeah, and you know what? That actually helped me actually in my mental health jobs, not gonna, because I would have clients from different cultures that um I'm trying to think of like an example. Like I had a client just culturally, like, you, if you understand their culture, you understand why they're resistant to certain things, or why they're resistant to telling their families certain things, or like or the idea of like family being such a hard opinion to crack or something. Just so culturally, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. So traveling really helped me with that, because I would have clients who came from Indian families, and they're just, you know, they want you to succeed, and they're usually very tough on their children. So if you're struggling with mental illness, they don't understand. So, and he would get so excuse me, he would get so frustrated. But like, because I've traveled and because actually I love Indian culture, I understood it. So I was able to talk to him like a person and like be like, I get it. I understand. I get it. Obviously, I was never raised Indian or in an Indian culture, so I don't fully understand, but I can sympathize, you know. So that's why I think traveling is so important, because you learn from other cultures, you take it back home, you meet someone in America or something, it just gives you more empathy for people. It gives you more leeway to be more compassionate towards other people and other people's opinions. You know, even if you don't like it, you have to be like, well, where they come from? That's part of it. How were they raised? It's part of it. Yeah, I might not like what the person says, but you know, or what they believe or whatever, but I'm like, oh, okay, like I can put the pieces together, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely valuable. So I could see why you say that, you know, traveling taught you more than college, and was probably, you know, overall, depending on what college people go to, like probably overall cheaper as well, you know,
Yeah.
than a college degree.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about how that ties into your books and how you talk about anxiety and travel in your books?
Yeah, so my first one is, I would say, is kind of more along the lines of like a memoir. Um, that's about my personal struggles with anxiety. That book is pretty raw and uncut. I don't leave any details out in that one. But it takes me on a travel journey that I did for like on and off for like 10 years. And it's like a culmination of my blog from back in the day, and like all my travel journals, because everywhere I travel to, I write every single day. So I write after that day. I discuss what I saw, who I met, the conversations I had. So I can go back, pick a date in like whatever year or within the last 10 years, and I can tell you where I was. So, that book is just all the messages and this, like, I say spiritual messages. It's not like, I think some people misconstrue the spiritual part. Has really nothing to do with religion. It's just a spiritual, personal journey, a personal growth type journey. And each message that I've gained from each trip, I would take home. So each chapter kind of emulates that. And then, with when I was working in mental health and just meeting clients that I had, and then my stepdaughter was dealing with panic attacks. And so I was like trying to figure out a way to do something for her and like for her generation of kids. Because I was like, these kids don't have, I just felt like they don't have what we had. I don't know. I just feel like they were struggling with a lot. And then, you add social media, which, is another layer to it. So I wanted to do something that was like, that's something that they can relate to, but still get like a therapeutic message through it, but in a fun way where it's not boring. Because I was looking up what teen anxiety books, and they look so clinical. They're boring. I'm like, nobody's going to try telling a teen to go sit in a meditative, like in a, like just sit and be like, oh, just meditate for 20 minutes. Go tell a teen that. They're going to tell you to go fuck yourself. They're not going to do it. So I wanted to do things that like they can resonate with, they can understand the stories in the book, and do the coping skills can be done anywhere. And I specifically wanted to do it so that they can do those coping skills even in school. So, and they're not so outwardly like, you're not going to look like a weirdo for doing them, like you can sit in your desk and do them. So that's kind of where, and that one means a lot to me because I wish I had a book like that when I was a kid, So I hope it helps teens.
Oh, that's amazing. It's great that like you made the book that you wish you had when you were a teen. So that sounds amazing. And that is a good point. I do meditate now and I do go to therapy now.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was in my teens, I was resistant to therapy and, didn't even think about trying meditation. So it's interesting, like, teens might not be as, willing to do things that they would be later on as an adult. So
yeah, I mean, I was a different teen as a kid because I was meditating as a kid. So like I remember even meditating like as early as middle school. But and my mom, I feel like she raised us on like Wayne Dyer kind of, because like she was obsessed with him from like the 70s, and he's like an amazing spiritual teacher, and and so I was always I wouldn't say always, but I did do it periodically. But I was still struggling with anxiety as a kid and as a teen, and probably at its worst when I was in my early 20s. But yeah, I mean, I never went to therapy before that either. And I only started going in my 20s. And, I just want kids to think like therapy is okay and therapy is cool. And it's like, it needs to be sought as a cool thing. Like, it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to cry. It's actually a good thing to release your emotions. And I think when you start, like I've noticed over the years, because I would just like kind of test it where I'm like, it's not a healthy behavior, but when you bottle things in, and then I knew at some point I'm going to explode, or at some point it's going to manifest into a panic attack or whatever it is. And I just didn't, and I recognized the pattern. So for me, I was like, I have to get it out. So whether that's therapy or that's me writing, it's therapeutic for me. So each person just needs to learn their thing and just be disciplined and do it, but it takes time. It's like it's an art form for sure.
yeah, definitely. It's definitely about self-awareness. And now that I think about it, I do say that I didn't meditate when I was younger, but I have been drawing my whole life, and drawing
That's
is kind
meditative.
of
Yeah.
therapeutic and meditative to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that, that definitely helps.
Yeah. And I think like that's also part of the book too, where I make it like there's some meditation points in there, but they're not what the vast majority of people think, where you have to just like sit in like a pretzel and like meditate for 20 minutes. Like there's so many different ways of meditating. Like for you, it's drawing, or for me, it's writing. Like you can meditate and wash dishes. Like sometimes just like you just get into a weird zone where you kind of zone out. That's like a meditative state, or like taking a walk or whatever. Or like the washing dishes ones, that's like a working meditation. But whatever works for you. Some people clean. I don't know. So I mean that works for me sometimes. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, something just as simple as going for a walk and thinking can be incredibly, like for me, whenever it's nice out, like in the summer, I'll go for a hike and just a walk in nature. The
mm-hmm.
amount of creative
I'm
ideas that come
sure.
into my head while
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking, it's insane. Like I
Yeah.
literally I started pulling out my phone, and I would
Yeah.
use the Evernote app to like record voice memos, because I'm like, these ideas are like, I don't know why, just something about being in nature to me. I'm like walking, just it's like I'll get so many creative ideas popping into my head. I'll be like, I don't want to forget this. So
I
I'm gonna like,
know. I
you know,
know. Uh-huh.
talk about what I'm thinking. So it's definitely interesting. So so have you worked in a toxic work environment, and have you felt underpaid before?
Yeah, many times. I would say both of whatever mental health job, unfortunately, I had was extremely toxic. Um, Definitely underpaid in doing that, and it's hard work, and you're dealing with serious things like dealing with mental illness for people. And when you're doing that type of work and you're stressed out from just doing that type of work, and then you're underpaid on top of it, it adds a whole nother layer, and you're in a whole nother ballpark of stress. So yeah, um, I've been there many times. It's not fun. um, and I'm glad that I left, because I know my value. um, and it's just, I'm like, you know what, it's not for me. And I know a lot of people that I've met in the field that are great at their job. And I'm like, you're like a Mother Teresa. I don't know how you do this. Not to say that I wasn't good at it. It just overtook me. I'm too much of a sensitive person, and I almost have too much empathy to a fault, where it's hard to see someone struggle. And when you're hearing it every single day, and you see it every single day, and you see like the most atrocious of things every day, it's hard to be upbeat, you know?
Yeah, I definitely feel you there. And you can't even like, and when it's your job, you can't even like take a break from it,
No.
like, I mean, I guess you could take a PTO day here and there, but like you can't like just be like, I need to like step away from this for a bit. So
Yeah.
that definitely, I I'm glad that you were self-aware about it, and that you knew your worth, and that you moved on, because oftentimes I know I have done it. Like, I feel like oftentimes can get like comfortable at a job and end up
Mm-hmm.
staying at a job that we hate, just because we're comfortable. It's what we're used to. And yeah, so I'm definitely glad that you moved on from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted to, do you have any shout outs you want to give for your Instagram, for your
Um,
platforms?
yeah, I mean, well, I just wanted to say about my book, because some people wanted more copies, but I ordered them, so they should be here January 19th. I bought more copies. If you wanted like a signed copy, you can get it on my website, travelingjerseygirl.com. And then all my Twitter, Instagram is Travel Jersey Girl. It's Jerz. And then Facebook is Traveling Jersey Girls, so you can follow me there. I'm everywhere. I'm even on LinkedIn too.
Nice. Yeah, and I'll leave some of those links down in the description. And thank you so much for coming on. It's
Thank you so
definitely
much.
awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Definitely awesome chatting with you.